card here. We're good.
All right. Take the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we are on to the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 13th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve? Any questions?
I move to approve.
I second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Sorry. A little slow going tonight. All right. Now, item number 3, the approval of the general fund vouchers 81,391 through 81,474, and wire transfers 2024-0500 and 2024-0550. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the general fund vouchers as read.
Okay.
Second.
Second. And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Public comment. We have no public, therefore there are no comments. Moving on to the approval of the resignations.
Okay, we've got a couple of 3 resignations. One is Heather Miller. Many of you know Heather Seiler. Heather Seiler Miller, one of our high school secretaries, is just resigning to go back to school. So she finished out her school year and won't be coming back. We have Kyle Christensen, one of our high school night custodians, resigned, and so we have that position posted to replace. And then we also have Mr. Sargent, Jason Sargent, resigning as head softball coach, resigning from the coaching position.
Okay. Any discussion? Otherwise, motion?
I move to approve the resignations.
I'll second it.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Moving on to a little more exciting, the approval of hires.
Yeah. So we've had our elementary special education position posted in different forms for several months. We've had a couple of applicants come in over the last month or so and interviewed some people. So pleased to announce, so we've got Shelley Doyle. I'd like to put her forward as our recommendation for elementary special education teacher. She's got a number of experiences. She's been living out of the state for a few years, taught in Wisconsin, a few different experiences, and then is back in the state here. Actually taught in Luck last year at the elementary school. Has a special education license, and so pleased to bring forward Shelley Doyle.
All right. Do I see a motion?
I move to approve the hire.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right. Properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Moving on to consideration and approval of staff leave.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I've got 2 requests for leave of absence, and these are both they're not FMLA, not medically or anything related like that. So these are board discretion to approve or not. So both of them have to do with staff members pursuing further professional development. So one of our paraprofessionals at the elementary, Kaylee Hoyt, is requesting a leave of absence for the first semester next fall. She would like to do student teaching, and so she's finishing off her teaching degree and would student teach actually at Clear Lake Elementary School, but she would take the semester off to allow herself to do that. So that would be an unpaid leave on her part. So the district isn't taking on a financial obligation. The only burden we would have would be finding a long-term substitute teacher. And then the other one is one of our teachers at the elementary school, Beth Weiland, 4th grade teacher, again has been taking classes to get her school counselor license. And she is working on an internship next fall, and so she has requested an intermittent leave of 18 total days. And again, those days would be unpaid, so there's not a financial burden But that would allow her to complete some of the required hours that she has to do for her program. So again, both of those are voluntary leaves, and both of those are to the board's discretion to grant it. Basically, it just means that we would preserve their position in the district. So the administrative team has discussed both situations, and we do support approval of the leaves. So you can take that recommendation into consideration. So I don't know if there's any other questions that can be asked here.
I think the one thing to consider is because it's not FMLA, I don't know that we can say that we're gonna hold your position, like officially say that, because there's nothing legally that says that you have to.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we went to our session, we do have to be a lot more flexible. So, I mean, if we had to hire somebody full-time to fill the para position, there's a good chance when she gets off, there might be another para opening, or we still have a need for another full-time para.
Yeah, I guess, and that's the discretionary part. Again, the board doesn't even have to approve the leave at all if you don't want to. I guess,
Yeah.
we, as an admin team, we would recommend, we are we are recommending that the leaves be approved. So, again, like you said,
Yeah,
wanting to work with the
yeah.
employee to hopefully advance, and be flexible and meet their needs.
It's exciting when we have people in our own staff that want to, climb the ladder up, so.
Will Kaylee be done with 100% with her degree after student teaching?
I'm not sure.
Yes, and then she wants to, for the final semester, be back in a para role, and then.
After that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll see what happens. Yeah, at
So
the
she
time.
doesn't want to come back and work
Yes.
here?
Mhm.
After
Second
that
semester. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
just to clarify.
Yep. Yeah, she's not resigning.
As a teacher or para. I move to approve the two leave requests.
Second?
It's been properly moved and seconded, thank you, Christie, to approve the staff leave request. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. The next item of business is discussion of the athletic conference affiliation.
Okay, I've got an update on that. Been a topic, I think, for 4 or 5 months on our agendas here, but so lots of conversations throughout this whole process with lots of people in the background here, but the Lakeland Conference schools did hold a second vote. If you recall, the first vote was 17-2 in favor. It does require a unanimous vote to pursue the fast track option, which is what we are requesting, or what the conferences are requesting. There was a revote held, and there was a 19-0 vote in the Lakeland Conference to approve Clear Lake's request to move to the Dun St. Croix. And of course, the Dun St. Croix had voted in April 9-0 to accept Clear Lake. So with that in hand, then I reached out again to the WIAA, spoke to the representative there, and got the required format and made the application, sent them the required documents. I was told that initially she had said that the Board of Control meeting was this week. It's actually next week. I looked on the calendar, it's the 19th, where they would then take formal action to vote to approve the fast track process. And again, this wouldn't take effect till the 2025-26 school year, so there'd be no change at all for next year. And then again, just for all of our people listening, is that this is all sports except football, because football is governed by a completely separate process that is actually run by the WIA based on enrollment. So that's a whole other situation. So just an update. Any questions or?
Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to our next item, consideration/approval of elementary reading language arts curriculum purchase.
Okay, so there has been an ongoing process throughout this entire school year, so I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Anderson. She can talk a little bit about the process that was used by the team there, and again, this is in the context of use of ESSER funds to purchase this curriculum.
Yes, so last fall, Andrew and I went to CSA and were trained on how to choose a high-quality instructional material. Oftentimes, CSA consultants will come to the district and lead staff through that, and Andrew and I thought, we'll give this a whirl. It's a pretty big decision, but we feel like we could. So we developed a very careful timeline with online sticky notes and followed it kind of to a T and just had dates set. And we trained in September, and by October, we had our team set and we began the process. We looked at a number of resources, but there's something called Ed Reports that can kind of vet out the best of the best that really fit the Act 20, which is some new reading legislation that our elementary early grades especially need to have embedded in their instruction. So we did that first, kind of narrowed it down to the top 10, then gave those out to the teachers. They narrowed it down further with through some goals that we have for our students and how we feel success can be managed and reached. So they got that down then to 5. And Andrea and I looked at it a little further. I mean, it was just kind of always trying to find. And then we did end up requesting 4 different resources and had 4 different Zoom times with reps and reached out to some neighboring districts that were using those resources. So it's one thing to hear from the rep who's trying to sell the product, and that's another to hear from teachers that are using the resource. So after all of that, we did arrive at a decision, and I believe there's a link into called Into Reading. So some neighboring districts do use this, and we feel through talking with some CISA consultants and the neighboring districts, we feel we'll have some support just rolling this out and as intended, using the resource as it's meant to be used. So we went back and forth with the rep a number of times and really are choosing the things that are most essential. For example, kindergarten does not use tech. They don't use their iPads anymore. They just really want to be more hands-on. So we're not purchasing that for our kindergarten students. So we really tried to tailor it to each grade and what they truly are going to use.
Teresa, can you just give a real high-level summary of like what's included in the package, like what actual materials and things that are?
Sure. So we can just maybe I can take a peek at one. Once you get to first grade, things are kind of standard, kind of 1st through 6th. It does run all the way through 6th grade, which other programs did not. They ran through 5th grade, and then we would have had a potential separate program or to bridge, do like a 6, 7, 8 with this building. But we were kind of excited to make sure that we have a K-6 program. So with this, one thing that was really exciting is a lot of the slide decks or projectable things that teachers use to teach are prepared for them. Right now, teachers are preparing all of that, the links, the little activities. They've been spending hours and hours and hours doing that. So this comes with that, and they're editable, so they can take things out and really streamline it to our kids. I mean, kids are visual learners, so when they're doing their full group lesson, there's something to watch in a sense, and then they can head back. There are consumables or workbooks that the kids will be using. There's classroom sets of, big books and reading materials. The resource really focuses a lot on decodable text. Decodable means words that you can use the sounds for to figure out the words. A lot of times, some of our resources, if you've heard of LLI or Fontes and Pinnell, or what letter are you, or I'm reading at a level F, those kinds of things, they weren't necessarily decodable. They were maybe repeated text. So you'd be able to kind of almost memorize as you go. So this program really is focusing on the sounds that make up the words, and that's getting back to that phonics, phonemic awareness, and all of that. So yeah, the teachers are excited. They are excited that tomorrow I can say, hopefully, upon your approval, to our rep, order it, because they want their hands on it so they can really start digging in. They'll instantly get their digital access, so they can really start looking through that and see, what that looks like. So.
And when does the rest come? How long does it take to get it?
Our rep said, a couple weeks. So by the end of June, they can get it. So, yes, sir.
Are there any, on the horizon, are there any AI tutoring type of things that come with the curriculum yet?
Nothing in this kind of resource. I know that there's a lot of AI. Mr. Melvin.
We all got our magazines this last week that had AI on the cover of
Yeah.
Mhm.
the
Mr.
school
Melvin
board
can
stuff.
speak quite well towards that, since he does send me AI generated emails sometimes.
It's a time saver. I applaud you.
The software that we're using, Search for prepping kids for the pre-ACT, ACT, starting next year, we'll have AI generated review for kids after they take each test. It'll personalize their learning depending on how they did on the progress monitoring.
Wow.
So I'm kind of excited to see that, and I would anticipate in the near future that most curriculum that we purchase, especially the digital stuff, will have that component at some point.
And I think the resources too, this particular one, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, into reading, the district that we talked with they were in the previous version, and so they were living the new version as we were kind of talking with them, because the company knew they needed to make sure they had some different pieces. So we are hoping, to have approval for the 5-year plan, and within that 5-year plan, there might be some sort of addition of something under that proposal.
So what other districts did you use for comparison?
Well, I have a list of the CISA 11 districts. Each spring, we kind of update what resources we're using just so we can network. We specifically, in regards to this, we talked with Amory.
And then some other districts about other ones.
Other districts about other resources, yes.
One thing to note about this too is there's a lot of talk about Act 20 in the education world, which is the new literacy law. And then there was, when it first came out, there was a lot of buzz about, it created a statewide literacy council, and that it was going to be all prescribed and everyone was going to have to use a certain curriculum, and that's not the case. But that council was set to recommend a couple of things. One is the universal screener for testing, which here we are, June 10th, they still haven't recommended one. And then they were also set to recommend some resources to select from. And just as you might imagine, it was a very politicized process. The people on the committee are appointees, political appointees. So as the thing was dragging out terribly, the DPI early this spring, maybe February, they put out a list of 10 that they said, hey, these, and mainly both groups using ed reports that Teresa referenced, the ones that score well on ed reports. So the DPI put out a list. So this is one of the ones that was on the DPI list. And then the other thing, sometimes people hear that, oh, there's money attached to if you pick one of the three recommended ones. First of all, you're not required to use one that was recommended by the Literacy Council, and the money that would be provided is very minimal. It's not. So I just want people to be assured, if you hear people talking about that, like, we have the freedom to pick the one that we want, that we think is good, that meets our needs. But we did use, resources, and it is recommended by the DPI. And just we're not missing out on any financial advantage or anything. So I just want people to be aware of that too, because there's been a lot of talk about that if you read it in the news and such.
So this being a reading curriculum, do we need to worry about maturity level and proper materials, proper ethics that way? Is that been weeded out, or?
I guess I haven't seen every title of every book that will come through, so that's something we can certainly, be aware of as we get text in kiddos' hands. The things that we perused didn't seem to have any concerning topics that maybe the general public would wonder, why is my child reading that?
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the elementary reading language arts curriculum purchase.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve the elementary reading language arts curriculum purchase. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the consideration/approval of the middle school math curriculum purchase.
This one's a little more anticlimactic because we're going to table this because we were still there's been, again, a group of people made a decision, but there's been some back and forth with the rep as far as finalizing, tweaking the final bid. It's okay because we're using ESSER funds for these curriculum purchases. We do not have to have it in-house by June 30th. It's okay. We have to have it allocated by June 30th, but it doesn't have to be in-house. So we're okay on the timeline. So we're fine. So we're gonna have that for you at the next meeting.
Okay, the next item of business then, as we move on, is the review of the Achievement Gap Reduction Year-End Report, the AGR.
Okay. Teresa, back on again.
Sorry, Albert. Your time in the limelight. All right, so AGR, Achievement Gap Reduction, is what had replaced SAGE back in the day. I don't even know if that's what people would remember it as. That's what I kind of think of it as a number of years ago. So we gather our data based on our FastBridge scores. A reminder too, this is that funding that we get to meet the needs of kids in different ways. There's three main ways that kids' needs are met instructionally. One is class size reduction, 18 to 1 teacher, so 2 students, 1 teacher. And that really fits most of our elementary class sizes, is we are selling over 18. You will notice that first grade, we were, one section was 19 and one section was 18, so we are over that limit of 18 per 1 teacher. So there are other strategies. There's an instructional coach strategy, there's one-to-one tutoring, so students in that grade level with that oversized class were able to receive some more instruction. But all of the other strategies used was the class size reduction. This does correlate well. I don't want to talk over your maybe glancing through the progress. So the baseline performance level, that's from fall. That's one of the columns on the far left. Fall semester progress, that is taken in January. So it's our progress up to January. And then we have our May screener. I'm not getting this error. Are you guys able to pull up the slides?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The slides or the PDF?
I can only pull
Yeah,
up, I can't pull up the FastBridge data comparison.
These ones here.
Yeah, that we can open.
We got a status code, people, 400.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know why that is. Well, here's what you can, so if you guys notice up in the red text, if you notice the URL in
Yep.
there, copy,
Just copy,
paste that into, because I just tried that and that works. If you copy and paste that into another tab, make a new tab, that will pull up the slideshow. That's kind of weird why that PDF isn't working.
Where's the red part, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
So just here.
All this stuff?
Yeah, copy paste all that into,
The web address.
yeah. Oh, jeez,
Well,
right clicked on it. We need to copy and paste that up into, can't drive very well from the side.
So the teal and
Let
purple
me see if I
slide,
can fix the.
slide deck, is this information just
Mm-hmm.
kind of in chart form here? So I can talk through a little bit. The top teal one is what is reported on the AGR report, fall and spring. You can see, there's what we would consider maybe loss, I guess. Speaking specifically regarding kindergarten. So they take the FastBridge test 3 times. In fall, it's letter names. In winter, it's letter sounds, and spring, they're reading. So it's 3 very different tests. Whereas some of the other grades start reading and reading and reading. They're all reading tests in essential. So it is very different. That's not explaining away. That's not saying, hey, that's why that score is like that. It's just a little insight. Something else to mention in that top slide is this is data that measures the 40th percentile of which we would kind of consider our benchmark, is at the 40th percentile. And I was reading another district's Title I school-wide plan, because that's what I do on my free time. And as I was reading through their plan, I noticed that they were reporting the 30th percentile as their kind of cut mark. And I said, well, that's kind of interesting. So then I put out a survey to Lakeland Elementary principals and said, hey folks, where are you reporting your data? And if you look at further down, there's a schools in CISA 11 document. or
Fourth slide, yeah, it's purple.
It's purple. These were the districts that got back to me from our CISA, and the majority are reporting as that benchmark as a 30th percentile. That made me kind of think, oh, that's why when I go to some of these gatherings and they're talking about their data, and I'm thinking, what in the world? Why isn't our data reflecting, like what are they doing that we're not? So if you go back to the second
Can everybody
slide.
get into it yet, or not?
Yeah.
I just tried resaving it as a PDF, and I don't know why it's not working.
I can't get mine to do it, so I don't know. I'll just.
Want me to try?
I have do you want to print out?
Are you guys in
So-
it?
I just
yeah.
don't know how
Okay,
to-
so
So
it's-
where
I don't know how
does
to
this
do a
data
left
go?
Click or right click on that.
We
Like when you submit it, where does it?
Where does, like,
Yeah.
the AGR, the title, it goes to the DPI.
So why don't they have a standard
click
of
with
what
two fingers,
measurement
is that
you're
the trick?
supposed to use? Like that would make all of this not valid.
It's like when I first got mine.
Stop making
There's
sense.
people out there.
No, but I'm just
Googling
like,
us
you
and
can't
deciding where to go.
report data
Yeah,
without.
he's got it.
Do you need this?
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, old school, right here.
Is-
So then that means in the state, like every report card could be skewed.
The short answer is because of local control, every district has their own screener. So, we use Fast
The
Bridge.
report card, though, Christie is pulling data from.
From
our
here?
Fast
No,
Bridge,
not
Okay.
pulling
at
your
all.
testing scores.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not at all. But it's, but yeah,
So
it's the
report
local
cards weren't
control
standardized.
piece
Yeah.
Correct.
that is the blessing and the curse of our state, right? It's like, well, you have local control, which means sometimes we feel like we're in the woods trying to figure it out on our own, and then there are other times where, we wish we had,
Yes.
that guidance, but there are other times where, I guess we do appreciate the local control, like when we're picking a literacy curriculum, but, so,
I get it from a literacy curriculum standpoint. If you're going to measure your success of education in the state of Wisconsin, this does not make sense.
so I think the next thing you're gonna get
I mean, that
to
makes
is
your
kinda
job that much more difficult.
where you're trying to, where I think you'll sum up with some of that, where I think those are
So
going.
that second slide, the purple slide, that says annual percentages of benchmark attainment, it's a 30th percentile. If we took our same kids, everything was the same, but
Oh, with
instead of
the
the
30.
40th percentile, we cut it at now the 30th percentile, because kindergarten alone had 9 kids at like 35 percentile. But we couldn't count them because we had set it at 40th. When you look at the purple chart, that looks a lot better, and it's not skewing data, we're not misleading people, it's just, we even think of special ed. If if a child is being referred for special ed and they would score at the 30th percentile, that's within normal range. It wouldn't even be
Yeah.
a data point as a referral piece. Special ed looks at 25th percentile and lower.
Well, special ed, intervention's 25th. If a student
Right.
qualifies for special
Yeah.
education, they probably are in the 10th percentile.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. But as a score of a student in, the 31st percentile, this blue slide here, the top slide, really wasn't telling our story. Because spring kindergartners, only 36%, or our 36, those that reached that 36th percentile, were the only kids that were going to be successful then in first grade at that 40th mark. That would tell a first grade teacher, oh my, I have a lot of kids that I need to start interventions with immediately. We're not intervening with kids daily, small group instruction, intense interventions with kids in the 30th percentile. They're within normal learning range, academically, instructional, where they're supposed to be. So that second slide of purple, that makes more sense. 72% of our incoming first graders are within a normal range. So that means the remainder of those students will have some interventions that first couple of weeks of school, get them going with Title I, get them going. That is our story. It really is. We're missing this top slide here. We're missing a group of students. It looks like we all were doing our interventions. You cannot intervene your way out of this kind of issue. We were reporting it, I feel, incorrectly. This is more of our story. Andrea Gillick, I give her credit for putting this together for us this evening. But the third slide just kind of shows it all in one page, so you don't have to kind of glance up, down, up, down. So that shows what fall and spring looks like at the 40th percentile, 30th percentile. And that clumps the kids in grade levels, which is what we do on our school-wide plan. We clump grade levels versus report every single grade level separately. We briefly discussed the schools in Seesaw. One of those schools that reports the 40th percentile uses a different screener, and that screener sets it at 40th. So they don't really have a choice. Two of the other districts sometimes set it, they both said, based on what we're reporting, we'll set it, for this data or that data. Again, not to skew or mislead, it's just you need data for different things. In this case, we just want to know, in a sense, which kiddos need interventions. The last slide talks a little bit about what's coming in the next school year. All students, this goes with the Act 20. All students in 4K through 3rd grade will be assessed on a single reading readiness screener. We're not sure what it could be. It could be FastBridge, it could be what we're using now. We don't know. But in this plan that will be starting next year, any student who scores below the 25th percentile on that screener will be administered a diagnostic reading assessment and receive a personal reading plan. If this is what DPI, State of Wisconsin, is stating as what we need to do as the standard, then we should get more in line with that. So in upcoming years, the AGR report will be at a 30th percentile. Some districts, and I talked with some of the Lakeland principals, they brought up, it's like, well, Act 20 is saying 25th. So there might be a shift even to that percentile mark. I don't know. But I think this will kind of allow us to be more in conversation with like districts and be like, okay, we are all doing and seeing success in our kids. We just were getting really frustrated with some of our results, and you see a kiddo at the 37th percentile and they're not considered on our data as a normal range, but they're within normal range. Glancing at some of the students that fall within that 30th, they're kiddos that Mrs. Gillick wouldn't really even need to see. They're kiddos that the teachers they're doing great, they're making the progress they need. So we just want to make sure that the story of success of our kids is really being told accurately. And I think that will be with the 30th percentile reporting.
So where do you set the benchmark? That's the question, and some context as to why the difference. So if you guys recall, we used to use STAR, and in STAR we had the benchmark set at, I think, the 25th, and you had two settings in STAR. You could do the 25th or the 40th, and we did the 25th because I remember having discussions about this exact discussion: what's normal range, what's the range of percentile that's normal. And then internal discussions in the school with the teachers. Some would say, well, why don't we have a higher standard? 40th percentile was, you could set it there. That was known as the forward exam, or at the time, the WKCE level, to reflect the benchmark there that was very high. Even discussions at the board meeting, I remember, okay, why is 25th percentile considered benchmark, So with some of that feedback too, when we adopted FastBridge, we kind of had that similar option, well, do we set it at the higher benchmark, or well, we set it at the higher benchmark? So that's why it's set that way. That was with our school-wide Title I team. But I think wisely reassessing it, are we in line with what, reflects what our kids and teachers are doing and with what other districts are doing. So I think it's a wise choice going forward to move it to the 30th.
Does our pillars agree with that, though? That decision? I think our pillars say that.
Pillars say high levels of learning for all.
We have high levels of learning for all, and we have increased our wages with the expectation that we set high standards.
If you're looking at.
Setting higher standards, this isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't putting a measurement on the bar of where the kids are at. This is just for clumping purposes. And well, I guess it is splattering against the wall to see where we're at, but if everybody else is using the 30th percentile, which is ideal.
Yeah.
I
don't even
think
know what
if
I'm
you're
trying to say.
using the measure like they have here, the 25th percentile, if you're below that, then you get the diagnostic reading assessment. That measure is to determine if there's an intervention. If you're saying the 30th percentile is normal learning level, why would you punish a child with an intervention that's not even needed? That's like going to jail for not committing a crime. That to me seems like it could do more damage.
What kind of clumping are we doing here? I just want to use that word
And
again.
Matt, to kind of touch on your point, there's kind of two separate things here. No teacher wants a kid to squeak by at the 30th percentile. So this does not change the expectation. We all want to be in the proficient and advanced across the board. We don't want any kids in the 30th or the 40th, or we want them as high in the percent. We want them in the 90th percentile, every student, high levels of learning for all. So that doesn't change. Because we're reporting at the 30th doesn't mean that it's two separate things. Our mindset is still we're reaching for the top. But we don't want to lose those kiddos that are really flowing right along with that benchmark understanding and making that steady progress. They're getting cut out of the picture right now. So.
And I think we also have to keep in mind a kid at the 85th percentile, we're not washing our hands, we're still trying to get that kid to grow. It doesn't matter what percentile they're on, we're still looking for growth. This is just determining when those interventions are going to take place.
Right.
Or who's getting those interventions.
Okay.
So I believe this is just a report out.
Yeah, there's no action
It
needed,
isn't,
no.
anything that,
Yeah.
we need to say, vote on this. I'm just more informing you now in the summer here that the fall, staff will start.
You'll get to re-explain it all again. This one seems to be an emotional topic every time.
That was a good catch, by the way, but I just want to caution you, it's going to take another probably decade to fix a lot of the things Chris had done back when he was.
That's just one.
Well, I'm picking on people tonight.
I've got a list.
Yeah, she's ticking away through it. Lots of work.
He would have looked really good. Now I can come in and swoop it up.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Anyway, next item of business then is the approval of the updated 46th long-range facility plan.
Okay, so if you're able to open up that attachment, this one's working. The Fund 46 plan is something that we're required to have on file, and really it's really kind of not really defined as far as how often you need to redo it, but it's just, you want it to be current and relevant. But we need to have a Fund 46 plan approved by the board in place in order to maintain a Fund 46 balance. That's our specific fund that we can take, surplus funds at the end of the school year, move them into Fund 46. That money is then considered spent from the DPI, which is great for our revenue. And then, or for our, our following year equalized aid formula, and then those monies can only be used for facility projects. So just updated the numbers on here, and so there's currently a balance of $460,000 in Fund 46. That's after doing the track project last year. So there was a transfer last July, and then we have to make the transfer by July 30th, I believe, or July 31st each year. So you have a chance to close out your fiscal year, and then you can make decisions how much you want to transfer. So we transferred $650 last year, did the track project. We have $460 in there, and then you need to state what you intend to do with your funds. And so, again, our ongoing plan is, if you go down to the last paragraph, continue to add surplus budgetary funds to the fund 46. Long-term plan is to use accumulated balances to address needs which are identified and will be prioritized from the district facility study that Kraus Anderson did this fall and winter. Shorter-term plan from that study and from our own experiences here, shorter-term plan, high priority items from that list, they're kind of in rank order, I would say. High school fire alarm system replacement, the kitchen HVAC, we've heard about that at meetings here in the past. Elementary surveillance cameras are actually, that project's underway. We already approved that a few months ago. We know about the chiller issue at the elementary school that got up and running again here this winter, but we know that long term we're going to need to address that somehow. We've talked about the bus garage and some remodeling there with the heat system and some safety things and related to that, and just upgrading it. Storage at the high school, parking lot replacement is going to be coming here due at some point, and then some HVAC issues at the high school as well. So that's just the beginning of the list. You recall when we had Kraus Anderson here, they went through the whole lengthy plan. There's a lot of things there, so that's ongoing. But so this is just an awareness of what our fund balance is and what our stated priorities are to try to keep things maintained. So, any questions? And I would ask that it gets approved, so it's on file as approved.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the updated Fund 46 long-range facility plan.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the Fund 46 long-range facility plan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Okay.
The next item of business is going to be tabled, I believe, the HVAC upgrade.
It is. So yeah, when Greg and I chatted briefly to kind of walk through the agenda, I told him I was feeling at the moment like half the agenda was getting tabled because so it's been a struggle. So we've got HVAC project for the kitchen. We've got some other things, and it's been a struggle at times to get enough bids. Contractors are so busy, so we've got a couple of bids for that project, but I don't think we're still, the verdict is out on what we want to get for that. So, and if I'm not out of turn to talk about the next one too, the fire alarm system at the senior high school is a similar situation where we've got a couple of bids in. They're kind of wildly different from each other, and we want some more. And this is an example of where our partnership with Kraus Anderson, they're just informally very helpful to us if we reach out and say, hey, we're having a really hard time, and I've done that in the last few weeks, to say we're just not, so giving them some really good suggestions or putting their reach out to certain people to try to help us out to move things along. So, but we've actually, I put them on the agenda with hope that we might get some things in Friday or Monday, but we have not. So I think we need to table those as well.
All right, and so, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. The fire alarm system, you touched on that too.
Yeah, sorry.
So then the next item of business then on our list here would be the consideration / approval of contract for athletic trainer services for 2024. And that one we're going to table as well.
To close session.
Close session.
Table that to close due to, just discuss the terms.
All right, this one we can talk about, right? Or are we going to table the bus garage?
No, we can
Or
the bus purchase. Yeah.
All right, consideration / approval of bus purchase.
Okay, so I guess what I am requesting to the board is a conditional approval. What I mean by that is if the board is comfortable giving the latitude to myself to, as we get down to the end of the month here in June, as we look at where our year-end balance is looking like, if we have the funds to be able to do this. It was not a planned item, necessarily. But if we do have the ability to do it, we've got one of our spare buses that is, it's from, I got the data here, it's 2002. It's got 250,000 miles on it, and it's failed the inspection. It's just some rusting issues on the floor beds, that it's not worth fixing. This is one that, if approved, wouldn't even necessarily mean that we would actually do it. It's just a matter of if we felt like we had the surplus funds to do it. There are 3 bids in there. When Tom came to me a couple of weeks ago asking about the possibility, I just said, well, it would have to be something that would be in stock, so that if we made the decision in late June to do it, we'd have to be able to go physically get it and have it in-house by June 30th. So the ones that he got bids for would be ones that were actually in stock and would be able to get picked up. And then the price is, listed $116,000 for 2 of the models. We would do an additional camera installation. We found that when we have them do it, it's really been beneficial. That's the equipment and the installation. That's the cameras that are inside the bus. That's the cameras that are on the stop arms as well. It's been really good when we've had them do it. The third bid there is much more expensive, $138,000. So this is something for the board to consider. It's completely up to the board. If it was approved, Tom requested he would prefer the first model there, the International. So, discussion.
Eternal limit.
Well, I see the buses as kind of a bank account. If you get ahead on them, then it saves you money down the road from having to make the investment. But one thing I'd like to throw out, this thing got 250,000 miles on it. If it wasn't so rusty, it would still be a usable bus. And, we've also talked about
22 years old. You said it was a 2002?
Yeah, I believe so.
Am I doing my math right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is 22 years old.
It should have some rust.
Well, anyway, what I was thinking
In Wisconsin.
was, sometime we had talked about doing something at the bus garage over there with some concrete on that
floor,
on that floor,
the dirt floor.
But if we're going to do something, would it pay to put some type of an underneath washing thing in? So when we go through a salt period, they can run the buses over some type of a washing system that can clean the underneath? I don't know. Yeah, that would be a question for Tom, I guess.
That'd be a question for Tom. I don't know if it's just, the age of it, just the wear and tear, that it's ultimately gets rusty, or if there's a way we could prevent
Any
it more.
car that's 22 years old.
I know, I'm just trying to think.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it lasted this long.
Line the bottom of them, or
You'd
I've
think
seen
they would
people
be
do
able
it to
to.
vehicles to help save. Or
That was my question.
some coating.
Tom, can we, and with this one too, I said, well, can we repair it, because he said, the engine still runs, it's still kind of a good runner, and I said, but can we repair it? And he said it's about $20,000 to repair it, and he said that he didn't want to put that money
Yeah.
into an old bus like that, so. It's truly one of those, it was not a planned thing, it's not expected, so I guess I just, if it's approved, I'm not even thinking, I don't even know for sure if we're gonna do it. It'd just be more a matter of if we have an extra large surplus than we're thinking we're gonna have, which happens sometimes.
So if we don't do it, how are we going to get by if we've got a bus that...
This is a spare currently. It's one of our extras, which is for, extracurricular trips and stuff like that. So it doesn't get, it's not on the route every day.
So we can use it, even though it's not DOT'd?
That's a
No.
question I'm not sure how to answer.
Probably can't put minors in
failed an
the
inspection, I
boxes,
know
right?
that, but you can mitigate some things and still use it. I don't know the exact answer on this one.
Okay. All right, well, I guess, as far as I'm concerned, I think we go ahead and give you the discretion to do that when you close your budget out. What do you guys think?
I move to approve the bus purchase if there are budget dollars to allow.
Second.
It's been probably moved and seconded to approve the bus purchase per Chris's discretion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item of business is review of the spring participation in ETS performance program.
Okay, good. So, yeah, good questions about this going in, and it's still a new endeavor. We started in the spring sports season, so I'd asked the coaches and the ETS folks and our internal here. So just the first document there is the spring sports season. We had 59 students who played spring sports from baseball, boys and girls track, golf, softball, 59 of those kids. So they were doing the in-season program 2 days a week. And then I asked them, Carson had been keeping track of the out-of-season participants, and during the sports season, if you look toward the bottom of the page here, while sports were still competing, the lowest range days, the fewest kids he had there was 5 or 6 kids per day. The higher range days were 11, 12 kids per day. So that, again, those were kids who were not in sports coming in to work out on their own. And then as soon as the sports season ended, then it was ranging up. First few days was low 20s, and by the end it was 28, 30, 32 kids. So that was just the beginning part here in the spring. Just wanted to share that.
How many did we have today again?
So
We
then,
started.
today, so I threw a second document on there today because I wanted to see, registration numbers and so on. So I'd asked Brian Schmidt to tell me, because people were still signing up over the weekend, so he sent me this morning an email that you can see the first 3 sessions are the high school kids, 9 through 12. So, 60, right? 69 kids. And then another, the middle school kids, 26 kids signed up there for the middle school. And then 11 signed up so far for the youth. So, pretty great numbers to see. I was told there was 79 kids of all ages that came through today for the different sessions. And I just looked back for comparison from the summer school reports that we do. So last year, the largest single day attendance was 33 kids. And the year before was 30. Now, that doesn't mean we had more than 33 kids doing weight room last summer. It just means that the largest amount we ever had show up on one day was 33. And we had many more kids, too, doing open gyms and stuff as well. But that was weight room. So I think really good response. My opinion, anyway.
And these costs, these prices, that's paid for by the parents then?
So $50 is paid for from the parents, and then the school is, so for the grades, kids who are coming into 7th grade on up, the school's paying $100 towards it out of our grant money, and the families are paying $50. And for the elementary, their families are paying the full.
For his number with the 26, is through the 6th through the 8th grader, is that past or is that ingoing?
So it's incoming, yeah. And so when we first
So that 6th grade is a different category.
Well, so when we first put out the registration, we matched it up with what our school, 7-12 building, and so we had a 9 through 12, and we had a 7-8 session, and then we had the 3rd through 6th, and we did have some parents of 6th graders asking which one they're supposed to do, and we talked to Brian Schmidt, and he said, most schools have a 6-8 middle school. So he said, I wouldn't have an issue at all with those 6th graders doing with the older kids, but at the same time, maybe, so we put an email specifically to the parents of current 5th graders going into 6th next year to say they actually have the option to do the 6-8 or the 3-6, depending on where they feel their kid is at. If their child is not as developed physically or emotionally, whatever, they could choose which one they wanted to do.
Okay, looks good. Any other discussion? All right, then we'll move on to the next item, consideration/approval of donation of kinship of Polk County.
So I attached the letter that they send to us now annually the last few years requesting, first of all, thanking us for participation and then requesting to see if we would be willing to donate $2,000 towards funding kinship. So this is specifically the kinship program that works in the school. So this is high school age mentors going to work with elementary students in our school district. And the second document there has some nice data about the impact of kinship and some of the, positive survey responses from both the mentors and the mentees and some of the teachers involved. Of course, to promote the program.
I
Other
wonder,
questions?
it's been a while since they've come and presented to us. Chris, hasn't it been?
I don't,
like a
I don't
decade?
recall. No, I don't know. To the board?
Yeah.
Pretty sure they did last year.
Did they? I just remember seeing this, I don't remember.
I don't know.
Maybe I missed.
I think it's been a long time since this board. I've seen it at the county level, but anyway, this thing is awesome, and if you don't know that, we should ask them to come in and present for us, just to keep everybody kind of abreast and refreshed on what it actually is. But I don't know, I feel pretty good that we've done the donation over the years, because it's been such a great thing. I mean, you can see the pictures of both the kids that are mentoring and the little kids that have mentors to hang out with, so good stuff.
I think it's a great program.
I do feel that both kids benefit the most. The mentor and the mentors benefit as much as the mentees with their learning and growth.
Yeah. Well, I'll entertain a motion then.
Second?
We need a motion.
I move to approve the donation of kinship to Polk County.
I'll second.
There we go. It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the donation to kinship of Polk County. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business then is the review of pupil non-discrimination self-evaluation report.
Okay, so this is something that is a federal requirement every 5 years. It got off track with the pandemic, and so then the DPI, and it gets handed down to the DPI or the equivalent of that in each state to be the ones to implement it and make sure that it happens. And so the DPI said that every district in the state, all 425 of us or whatever, has to do it this year in 23-24 for the 22-23 school year. So first it came out and it was due in the end of December, and there was a lot of like, holy cow, that's pretty quick. And then it got pushed back to January, then it got pushed back to the end of the school year. So we are not, it's a local evaluation, so we don't send in the report to the DPI. It's just available. We have to keep it on file in case they request it. But a lot of it has to do, if I can just keep it as a high level, it's basically reviewing a lot of our policies to ensure that we're in compliance. Are we posting appropriately? Are our board policies up to date with the correct language? Do we post them on our website? Do we have people identified as our reporting individuals for non-discrimination or Title IX or so on. So one of the cool things about us being a Neola district is that it gives us great confidence to know that our policies are continually being updated as laws change and rules change and policies change. For example, the Title IX rules have just been updated once again and will be implemented next year. So that's one example. Well, having Neola monitoring our policies is really great because it gives us great confidence to know that our policies are in good shape. So there's a myriad things involved, but basically it's just a process to, we also had, not requiring board action, but earlier this year, Elementary and Secondary Education Act, we had to do a similar self-analysis and submit up and again, that one didn't require being on a board agenda.
All right.
Well, our extracurricular took a dive.
15%.
Yep. Yeah, we noticed that too. I think that
Athletics went up.
one of the notes we put in there, was also, how was there a pandemic impact? Because if you look at some of the historical data, it's like goes back to the 1920 school year, and then.
So that would be FCCLA, FFA.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Band choir.
Anything not WIA.
Band choir, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Is there a club that we've lost over the last couple of years?
We've drama club, but that's prior to this, or after this, and then, but also we've added forensics too. So I think
Yes,
there's
that
kind of
should be.
a little bit of a
Spanish club.
Spanish club. Yeah, that's another one. Another thing is that you have to lay out your scholarship requirements. That there's not discriminatory practices with kids getting scholarships or getting academic recognition. So it's
A lot of them there.
There are, yeah. And again, these are from the 22-23 school year. So if you need help with insomnia some night, read the full.
Read the full report.
I don't know if there's any other questions. Or
Good stuff. All right, then the next item of business is the update on strategic planning and balanced scorecards.
Okay, and I'll invite the principals if you feel like anything to chime in on here that I'm missing. So just a real high-level overview. I looked back through the calendar, and in the last 2 months, I think we've had 8 strategic plan team meetings and 9 in the last 3 months. So that's a lot of times it's just like the 3 of us or the 4 of us, including Mrs. Powers. And then like maybe once a month or so, or a little bit more every 5 weeks or so, we've been also meeting with Mr. Sarin, Brad Sarin as well. And some of those meetings have been really timely where we're feeling like we're kind of stuck or we're kind of unsure where to go. And then he's been instrumental in kind of helping us get over that next hump or kind of give us, or even sometimes it's a little bit of a kick to be like, okay, hey, we got to make sure we got this done for this timeline. And sometimes it's also been a little bit of encouragement to say, hey, no, you're doing fine. You're building this as you go. So it's been really, really valuable. Some great professional development to work with him. So anyway, we are rounding out our goals to have all the scorecards done here by the end of the year for all 4 pillars, and we're there. And then for the July 8th meeting, we want to have another gallery walk and review the scorecards again. And again, the purpose is more looking at what we built and then also kind of giving a preview for next year. And a lot of the work that we've been doing recently too is like calendaring out next year to now say, okay, when we have this scorecard and we're using it, okay, when are we going to check in and monitor it with the board? And we kind of looked at the natural cycle of how things go with data, and like when does it make sense to report on, say, academic stuff? When is it going to make sense to report in on surveys from family and students and staff, those kind of things. So that's actually been kind of interesting work. So we'll talk about that more at the gallery walk. But so I just wanted to give the team credit. The principals have been doing a lot of hard work with this as well, and it's been I don't want to say an extra thing because it's the work, it's the most important work we do, but it's extra work of like building it the first time and putting the process together. And we're all agreed we're looking forward to when we kind of have it built, and now it's more focusing on the actual work and the actual goals in it, not just building it or in addition. So.
Yeah. Amen. Okay, any other discussion, questions? All right, next time business then is discussion of board retreat for professional development.
Okay, so we had kind of thrown out the idea of next Wednesday, June 19th at 5:30 to meet and to do some deeper dive into the school perceptions survey data. And that was the evening that Mr. Rob Demise from School Perceptions is able to help us walk through that. I think first time through, it's a really good thing. I know he's very good at what he does, but he's going to zoom in and kind of walk us through the reports that they're finalizing. And then we also talked about having a good open discussion about what are the behavior supports across the district, and kind of having a deep dive into that. So it'd be a not a meeting of official business, but again a board retreat for professional development where we all learn from each other.
Which this time we get to work on our own district, so that's kind of pretty cool, I think.
So next Wednesday that is already.
All right, the next time of business then is discussion / approval of district annual meeting date.
Okay. So if we stick with the traditional time that we've done, it would be that 4th Monday in August. So that would be August 26th. So I'm not even certain that we need to. We have it on for approval, but we kind of have said it in the past, and it's sort of set as a policy that or a precedent that we do it that way, but it's nice to get it on the agenda, just get awareness built up already among the public as well. So I guess I did put discussion approval if we want to just kind of reaffirm that that's what we'll continue to do on that that final Monday of August.
All right, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the district annual meeting date of August 26th.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the 26th for our annual meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. One question on that, Chris. Generally speaking, we go through the budget at that meeting. Are you going to put that on the agenda prior to that for kind of a...
Yeah.
So we have to approve, the board needs to approve the preliminary budget. We've done it both ways. Depending on how the calendar falls, it's got to fit so many days ahead of time so we can publish it publicly. Last year, I think it worked to still do it in the August early meeting, and it gave us enough days.
Okay.
There was, I think 2 years ago, we had a meeting in late July to approve the preliminary budget. So yeah, we're actually already working on the preliminary budget for next year, so. Yep. And then 7 p.m. too is the time for the annual meeting.
Okay. Next item of business are board policy updates and approvals. First, we'll do the second readings. The second readings are for the updates of 100 definitions, 122 board powers, 144.3 conflict of interest, 171.3 clerk, 1630.01 family medical leave absence, 2370 educational options, 2413 health education, 2460.03 independent education evaluation, 3430.01 family medical leave absence, 4430.01 family medical leave absence, 5610 suspension and expulsion, and rescind 2415 tutoring for credit. Does anybody have any discussion on any of these board policy updates?
Yeah, there was one we were gonna look at with FMLA, if it was gonna be the annual or
Yeah.
fiscal year.
Do we do it by fiscal year or do we do it by the calendar year? And so Eve did a little deeper research on that, and it's really the federal law gives you the discretion to pick.
Yes.
But the state law mandates that you use calendar, and so I misunderstood that. So anyway, so we really, in our current, because we didn't have an FMLA board policy, but we've had it in it's covered by the law, but we've had it in our handbooks, our employee handbooks. So so we have been using the calendar one by default because that's what the state uses. So so that was my misunderstanding on that. So
Okay.
The federal gives you the choice, but the state doesn't give you a choice. So now the question.
You do realize they both run concurrently, and they're two total. One only allows 12 weeks. The other one has other
6
stipulations. So
Yeah. Yep.
if you cross them, they run at the same time.
Yep.
So you could have them different. They don't have to be the same.
Well, and then the other thing is that if you are going to change from what you have been doing, it requires a 60-day waiting period.
Yeah,
So we
okay.
probably want to avoid that. So I think that's the other
That
reason to
makes
stick
sense.
with the calendar. So now the point of you could have someone theoretically game the system and do a leave up to one point, and that works both ways, honestly. I mean, you could have someone take a leave in the calendar year and then after the holiday break come back and take another leave too. So I guess that one kind of, when I looked at that, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess that would cancel each other out. But it came down to better understanding of the state law and not wanting to change it. So,
Okay.
so yeah, that was a great question that you brought up to force us to look into that better.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. A group motion on all of them.
I move to approve the board policies that were listed.
I'll second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the board policies as read. Prior, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item of business are the board policy updates and approvals, the first readings.
Okay, so we've got a number of first reading policies here, kind of the other half of them. So I can kind of give a summary here quickly of each one. I think there's a couple of them that bear a little, or should grant a little bit more attention to. The first one is 6325, procurement of federal grants and funds. Basically, this is the green parts in there. The changes are just kind of updating the amounts of dollars before the policy would kick in, and also towards the top part, complying with the Davis-Bacon prevailing wage requirements, which is a federal requirement for if you seek bids for construction over a certain amount, then you have to meet a standard of level of wages. So one of the there's a lot more red tape involved with that. It's one of the reasons why, for example, a lot of schools shied away, like us, using ESSER funds for construction projects, because it was a lot of extra accounting that goes with it. So that's the first one, with procurement. The next ones here are probably the more I had to, when we went through with our rep, I had to do more understanding here. So it's non-district supported student activity accounts. So if you scroll a little ways down to the second paragraph definitions, there's district-sponsored student, there's definitions of a different district-sponsored student activity, meaning that it's something that the district endorses as an activity, but then below that, B and C, district supported and non-district supported, that refers to the financing. The support part means, does the district put funds toward it, or is it self-sustaining? Okay, so an example of a district-sponsored activity that is not supported would be like the class dues, the class accounts that they have. So that's, the junior class has an account. It is district sponsored because it's part of the school, but it is not district supported. The district doesn't put money into it. The kids put their own money into it. And if the kids or the group puts its own money in, they govern how it's used. Like the district, like I don't come in, or Brian or Teresa don't come in and say, well, we're going to spend the money this way. It's like, no, they raise the money, and then they have their officers that they elect, and they choose how to spend the money. So the first policy here is just that governing, differentiating that a little bit better between the two. And it was just choices as far as, basically saying district administrator, and certainly with input from, well, we don't have a business manager, would have the discretion to help make some of the decisions about it, as opposed to, or bringing all those decisions to the board. It's probably not something that the board wants to micromanage. And then the other part of it is, at the end, what to do with if you have an activity account that goes defunct, basically. It's just not being used, there's just money sitting there. What do you do with the money? And so we had a couple different options. Basically, we weren't comfortable just taking it into Fund 10. And you got kids who raised money, and now we're just going to take it as a district. Or some of the other choices. So basically, it can be, on the recommendation of the principal and the approval of the district administrator, transferred to another student activity account. So that was that one. And then the one that goes right with it is the next policy, 6611, is district supported sponsored student activity accounts. So this is again where it's district sponsored, so it's a school related thing, and it's district supported, where we actually contribute some of the funds to it. An example here that I could think of was like say the art club. So the art club, they raise some of their own money, they do fundraisers and so on, but when for example they go to a competition or state competition, we also the district also contributes some funds to the organization when they make it to state for VAC, to help pay for hotels or things like that. So that's the difference of a district supported and district sponsored activity account. So in this case, then district personnel do have some, influence on how the money gets audited and controlled and so on. So basically, it's saying that those duties of being the treasurer of those accounts gets delegated from me to a financial secretary. So that would be like Joy and Eve would help manage those accounts. That's what they currently do. And then same thing at the end if the funds are just sitting there being unused for more than a year, what to do with them. And again, made the choice of that we would recommend that they would go into another student activity account, put them to use. So when I went through them, those were the ones that seemed to me that required the most of my mental attention to try to understand what they were about. So the 6630 is cash handling and deposits. In this one, we had Joy Nordby and Eve. I'm not sure if you were in that conversation as well. I think it was more Joy, but we just kind of walked through, okay, what are our current practices, and we just made the choices that match up with what we currently do.
Yeah, I wasn't part of it.
Yeah. But it's just, updating the procedures. So cash shall be accounted for and deposited in a financial institution within one, and we chose a week. Every business day would not be practical. We take in so much, cash from different things, not necessarily large amounts, but it wouldn't be practical to do that. So we chose 1 week or as soon as practical, which is exactly what we do. And just talking through it with Joy, it just really gave me a lot of confidence in how we handle our cash. I think we do a really good job with that. So the next one is 7440, facility security. This just they added in their language about authorizing us to use metal detectors or handheld wands if we want to, other security devices. We don't have plans to do that, but it just gives us, if we ever felt like as a district we needed to do that, we would have authority to do that. This clarifies too just about event supervisors and administrators, if we have events in the building, what to do if you have a visitor or a person on campus who is not being cooperative, and how to handle that. Any questions on that one? The technology policy lays out that we, have documents that dictate how we use technology, and as I'm interpreting it, it's our, our student acceptable use policy that the kids and the parents sign. Talks about a governance council. We do have a technology committee in our district. We've had it for a long time. Lays out, we had to make choices about how we label and inventory our technology pieces, so we try to do that to reflect what we currently do with basically Mr. Osmond Bo does that, monitors that, labels things, does inventory with the assistance of Vicki Dreyer. So I don't know, any questions there? Public records policy update. There's an addition there in the first paragraph, including providing the notice required, identifying positions of the district that constitute a local public office. So I will look into that more and find out what I need to do to determine what's a local public office. I know my position is considered that. I know the board members are. I'm not certain. It's sometimes gray whether our principal is considered that. So I'm pretty sure I am. All of you are. Okay. And the last one is student records. And if I recall here, scroll way down, I think it was just basically removing student ID number or ID as a form, as being counted as a directory data, piece of directory data.
if we could go back to public records, I just want to
Yeah.
comment on that, Chris. You're the one that's keeper of our records, and we give you that power to do that. And I don't know, to the depth of the realization that we realize how big of a deal that is.
Mhm.
For a number of different reasons. Number one, for people that are trying to poke around and start some problems. And I remember going through this when Brad was the superintendent, when you'd have somebody that was poking around having problems. It's a pretty big deal, and you've got your lawyers that you can consult with. Other times when you have a board member that wants to start poking through things too, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have a board member that's poking around trying to find some dirt on something or whatever, is it common practice for you to inform, if one of us asks for something, you distribute it to all of us, so we're all in the know of who's asking what?
Yeah.
Kinda, right?
Yeah. And I think with Neola now, we actually have a policy that lays all that out. We didn't have that before, years ago anyway, I think. But I remember in these approvals over the few years, there's actually now a policy, which is really good, because then it tells me exactly what I should do.
Right, I think I remember that being in there, and I didn't see that in here, and that's why I thought I would bring that up,
Yep.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the time to talk about that stuff is when you don't need to talk about it. That's when the time to talk about it, yep.
But the
Right.
public has the right to request certain things.
Yep.
Because we are a public entity.
Yep. And I do get, that's been a learning curve for me, and interesting, I do get
Yeah.
records requests. And the thing nowadays, the trend nowadays is across the state, across the country, is you have groups, outside entities that make blanket requests of
Mhm.
every, they send it out to every district in Wisconsin saying, give us this. WASDA is really good about kind of putting out communication saying, hey, some of you may have been getting this email, and kind of give you a little context of kind of what group it's coming or where it is, and then just saying, give you good legal advice on how to handle it appropriately, legally, and do the right thing and provide what you're supposed to provide, but yet also protect and safeguard your district too at the same time. So WASDA is really good about that. They'll put out a legal brief saying, remember, here's some key points to remember about these public records. That's an example of how WASDA is such a great, support and investment for us. And then it's also, a lot of it, is Eve, and in the past Lori is, a lot of the responsibility, and then this building secretary is for maintaining our records that we keep for our student records for so many years, and our personnel records, and our financial records, and our board records. I mean, yeah, it is a big deal. There's a lot of stuff.
Well, there are records that you don't have to or cannot hand out as well, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And, I'd say when it gets into those really complicated things, that's when we call Trevor and say,
Right.
all right, Trevor, walk me through this. Trevor Elmer's our attorney, because it's, they have this certain situations where maybe people are requesting about an employment matter, and that's a private matter. However, it rises to, someone who is a public office holder, it can, some of that personnel stuff can be released publicly, but then, you do what's called a balancing test to determine if it's in the public interest versus, maintaining the privacy of the individual. And that's where you want to have an attorney assisting you and making sure that you're doing things the right way. Yeah,
Right on.
great discussion to bring up.
All right, is that all of them?
That's all of them.
All right, well, we'll visit them again next meeting. Next item of business is our superintendent notes, Mr.
Okay.
Chris Peterson.
Let's see. So things have slowed down a little bit as far as all the student activity. Well, I shouldn't say that. In last month of school.
Yeah.
So, but going back to the last time we met, I always kind of look back on what's happened since the last meeting. Of course, we had all the senior things. We had the awards night, $144,000 worth of scholarships handed out on awards night. Amazing. Great graduation ceremony this year. And also, I just want to take the opportunity to make a public thank you for all the support that was shown for the Steinberger family and for the whole school community after the tragic vehicle accident where we lost our staff member, Alexis. That was a very challenging, set of days there, and I want to just, there were lots of raw emotions, staff, students. Just tough period of time, but also heartbreaking, but also heartening too, to see the way that our, being at particularly elementary school, the most impacted that following morning, and just to see the way the staff and the kids all, pulled together and supported each other. Just saw a lot of just authentic caring and healing, and so much. And thank you to the whole crisis response team, and particularly, and the principals and Mrs. Anderson and her building particularly affected, and Mrs. Powers as well, as being a member of the special ed department. And then also I want to thank our Clear Lake Area Ministerial Association. I mean, they are just awesome. That's a relationship that's been cultivated for decades by different superintendents over the years, different pastors over the years, and clergy members over the years. So it's just, we're so fortunate to, I said to these guys, it's like putting out the bat signal, like, all right, we need help, and they come, and they're there, and they were just awesome. So I also want to thank some of our neighboring districts. I mean, Turtle Lake reached out offering to help. Clayton and Amory reached out and brought in, snacks in the staff lounge. The next day the high school staff sent snacks over to the elementary building as well. And we also had crisis response in the high school building as well, because we know there are connections between families and friends and so on. And we just never know how a traumatic event impacts anybody who's had their own trauma in their life. So it was a very challenging time, and still is, but also very proud of the way that our school community rallied together. So I just wanted to make sure we talked about that a little bit. So, on lighter topics than that, just some other positive things. We had a really neat article. Mr. Vitalis was featured in the Amory Free Press locally with his summer youth band camp, and we had 3 kids make it to the state track meet. Paul Wagner in the pole vault, Alexis Burr in the 300 hurdles, and Shelby Meyer in the discus. We had elementary activities like track and field days, kindergarten graduation, 6th grade graduation. The 6th graders came over and visited the high school a couple weeks ago to get oriented here the first time. That went really, really well. Public library came in and gave a nice presentation at the elementary school on the last day of school. So our FFA took a trip to Washington, D.C., the leadership conference last week, and this week they're off to the state convention. Summer school starts tomorrow. We were discussing that before the meeting started, so they had in-service today. And then just a lot of activity with year-end, spending down and budgets and closing out the year, and had a successful end to the year, and just kind of making that transition now, not fully into summer mode yet. It doesn't feel like we're still kind of, it feels like the kids just walked out the door a minute ago. So anyway, so that's just some updates on things. Busy time.
Right on. Well, thank you, Chris. Next item of business is our contemplated closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 paragraph 1C and 19.85 1E. The board will discuss staffing and staff compensation. The board will review competitive bids and vendor contracts. I will pull the board. Nettie?
Yes.
Corey?
Yep.
Myself, yes. Christy?
Yep.
Matthew?
Yep.
We are all present. Is everybody going to be joining us?
I think.
It's exciting.
Trying to.
Eve, thank you. All right, we're back in open session. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve a contract for athletic trainer services for 24-25.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve that position. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next agenda item is the future agenda items. Anybody have anything that they want to put on the agenda?
When do we get to see the new athletic code?
That's coming.
Okay.
We've got on the future agenda items a gallery walk to review strategic plan scorecards at July 8th meeting, and then also handbook updates coming forth. So then I will
Probably some new bids that we can have all
And hopefully,
bids for.
hopefully
And
we
some
can
new
revisit
bids,
some of
yeah.
these bids. Yep.
And then the next item of business then will be adjournment. I will entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. We are adjourned.